日メニューを選択してください。リクスなどは、書類写真、手入れ撮影したノーマルデータをスマートフォンに送受信するサービスでお得をいただきます。
Minagenki. So Japan has a new visa, the digital nomad visa, and it is all the rage. So let's get this thing going. I'm ready. 3、2、1 action. Minagenki. So today is
3月末
March. This is the month where Japan's new, brand sparkly new digital nomad visa is supposed to hit the streets. Is it worth it? Is this your golden ticket, Willy Wonka golden ticket to Japan? Believe it or not, there are some quirky caveats that make this visa kind of a make or break for a lot of people. I've been snooping and I've found some golden nuggets that we have to talk about today. So we are going to break it down. さて、新しく来た皆さん、ヤッホー、こんにちは。私は、今日は毎日なかなか落ち着かない元気なロレッタです。で、最近日本もデジタルノマドビザの実施を検討して、日本の IT 業界やエコノミーを一気に復帰するっていうようなニュースなんですけれども、なぜかこのコミュニティの中でものすごくバズってきたので、そうですね、海外の感想、それからみんながコメントで書いてるとこを、シェアして、それから裏でいただいた正式的な情報をまとめてお伝えします。Also, I hear you. Last video, I tested out a new camera lens, and we all learned that autofocus plus talking with your hands is kind of hard to watch, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. Alright, so we'll just put this away for another day. So at a glance, the digital nomad visa sounds like a pretty sweet deal. Japan's pretty new to the game this year, but a number of different countries have been putting out this digital nomad visa and sort of marketing it as this idea that you get to work and make money in your home currency while you're still kind of feeling like you're on vacation. You're not tied down. It's a sense of extra freedom while you're making all those dollar bills. Remote work, time zones, logging into work from a whole different country. I am genuinely happy with the topic of today's video because it gives me a perfect segue to introduce my newest sponsor. Yep, full disclosure, today's video is being backed by NordVPN. If you check it out, NordVPN is actually having a birthday deal right now where if you sign up for this exclusive deal, you also get 4 months for free on their VPN and other security-based services. Now, this is relevant today, especially for the digital nomad visa news that's coming out, because when you're traveling abroad, living abroad, working from abroad, the issue of security starts to become a little bit widgety, a little bit squirrely. Traditionally, most people have a kind of basic idea of a VPN. They think it's a way to kind of stay home even when you're traveling. You can keep streaming your favorite shows, or maybe you can log into your work servers or into your bank accounts and still access your bank accounts when you're abroad and you need to access your bank accounts because you're getting paid in home currency and you need your bank account. Did I say bank account? I personally have had some trouble working locally here in Japan on local networks, trying to access websites that I need to bank accounts, websites that I need to back in the States, etc. I mean, even something as basic as ordering flowers for my mother on Mother's Day or ordering some steaks for my dad on Father's Day. I don't know why, but these sites locked me out because my IP address is in Japan. People think as a VPN as a way to tunnel your IP address into a new location so people don't really know where you are. This gives you an extra sense of security, and it also gives you access to other things and extra perks. One quick hack, for example, in Japan, with the dollar and the yen going crazy whoopsie daisy at the moment, it's really expensive to buy flights home or abroad or other places in Japan on local Japanese currency in yen. I have found historically that if you log into websites from an American IP address and not from Japan, for some reason, not just the dollar to yen rate, but the actual prices that you're shown tend to be cheaper in dollar or of better value. I've noticed recently that using a VPN isn't just for entertainment or just getting to look at your old favorite websites. It also allows you to access sites that you need and make purchases, shopping, etc., and save a little money on the side. But for Japan specifically, especially on the digital nomad visa, you're going to need a place to stay. You probably heard that this visa is only about 6 months long, and what that means is that you're kind of stuck with short-term living situations. We'll talk about that in a second. chances are you're probably going to be in a service situation at a cafe or in sort of weird outdoors locations subject to the Wi-Fi that's available to you. If that's the case, logging into work and doing your actual sensitive data information work back home here in Japan may be jeopardized if you're not using something like the added security of a VPN. When you're working on your laptop, obviously using a VPN is going to help you stay a bit safer, keep your data safe. There's the NordPass, which is a password keeper, so you don't even have to keep your password. There's NordLocker if you want to store your data into a safer, secure environment. There are so many different features that go beyond just sort of browsing and entertainment, but the actual security features of NordVPN are actually going to be a huge boon to you if you're thinking of working as an actual digital nomad in Japan. And it's not just laptop-based features. I tested it out. I went to some weird places. I found that the NordVPN app also works on your phone really well, allowing you to choose between different networks with the easy, quick click of a button. Bam. That was what? 2 seconds? It works on your laptop, it works on your phone. That way, no matter where you're going as a nomad visa, you're not bound to working on just your laptop as well. You're pretty flexible and easy to go. You are safe from man-in-the-middle attacks, your passwords, your data. So thank you to NordVPN for teaming up and joining us on this adventure today, but also for keeping my data safe. I will keep the link below again in the description. Get the NordVPN birthday deal today and get 4 months for free. Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so feel free to check it out and see if it works for you. All right, so on to the visa. So at a glance, what is a digital nomad visa? What we know is that it's up to 6 months long. It's available if you're a visa waiver country or a country that has a tax treaty with Japan. You have to have a work contract with work that can be done remotely with a company that's outside of Japan. Your yearly income has to be a minimum of 10 million yen. And while the visa was up for public comment up until recently, it should go into effect in March this month, this year. Like now, it might even be up by now by the time this video is up. I've been talking with a few legal professionals in my arsenal and getting some direct details from immigration. I also have been reading about sort of the public response to this digital nomad visa here in Japan. Let's look at it. So here's one local article giving you a kind of sense of the temperature, what people are actually saying locally about it. So for example, this article, first paragraph talks about the visa and the kind of the general steps of this digital nomad visa. The second paragraph just jumps right into it. We're already talking about, in comparison to the other G7 nations, and these are sort of the big hitters that you see, Japan has fallen out of the sky, and unlike its place in 2019, where it was number 9, it has now fallen all the way down to 32nd in terms of competitiveness with its other sort of friendly nations. In the same ranking, 64 of the same nations were also ranked highly because they've been integrating new digital technologies to sort of improve the economy and general life in society. Here's where it gets hairy. In comparison to its neighboring East Asian countries, we're talking Singapore at number 3, Korea at number 6, Taiwan at number 9, Hong Kong at number 10, and China at 19, Japan is now considered to be falling behind. Japan looked left, Japan looked right, and suddenly it's playing a game of catch-up. So what are the comments? One travel journalist is bringing out the numbers. He's saying, in Japan, we're looking at the potential of a half-year visa, whereas next door over in Korea, South Korea, for example, the maximum digital nomad visa can be up to 2 years. It's 4 times as long, and really, what's the difference between this and just a normal tourist visa? A tourist visa in Japan is 90 days, basically 3 months, and you get to do this 2 times in 1 year. You put these together and go home once in the middle, and basically, you can live in Japan for 6 months as a tourist anyways. Technically, you're not supposed to be working when you're on a tourist visa. Technically, legally, you're supposed to have a legal work visa. So maybe this is just the neat way to say you can be a tourist and you don't have to quit your job while you're here for the 6 months if you're working remotely. Maybe this is just a neat little box to put that sort of lifestyle into. My biggest concern, my question is then, what about taxes though? A visa usually means you have to pay taxes. So is this digital nomad visa essentially just a big tax scheme? Is Japan just siphoning off some American dollars into Japanese tax? I'm not sure how they're going to inspect the documentation on this, but if just saying basically off the bat, half a year doesn't seem long enough. It doesn't seem like it's going to be of much use. If Japan puts out a digital nomad visa, it's going to bring in a new set of international talent, a new set. It has the added benefit, the perk of adding a sense of new diversification and exchange now here in Japan. Digital nomads are other type of talent who are able to work anywhere solely based on their skill and their and their knowledge. So bringing them into Japan might bring some fresh incentives, some new ideas to incite Japan. And while they're living in Japan, they're using those home country salaries and spending in Japan, which may be kind of contributing to Japanese society. Ooh, spicy. The entire point of a digital nomad visa is to live in another country than the one where you're actually working. These digital nomads are working for companies that are not in Japan. They're working for companies that exist outside of Japan. So how is it that they're supposed to be creating innovation and bringing it to Japan if their workplaces are not in Japan? Ooh, someone's got their thinking cap on. 10 million yen is the type of money you could make working part-time in auto in the States. As we see more and more wage gaps across the world, I'm starting to wonder about how we're setting these standards for income. Basically, there's just a commentary about this income requirement being 10 million yen, which it sounds like back in the day, this was basically like 6 figures. This was about $100,000, but really with the way that the dollar to yen is working, it's closer to about 65 grand annually in terms of the actual cost of living in Japan. Let's say, for example, you are at the bottom end, you're at the starting point and you're making close to 10 million yen. This can be a livable salary, but does it actually work in Japan? 6 months visa. This is the problem. A 6-month visa means that you're not able to show residency for over a year. I don't know if you've ever tried to get a phone, a bank account, or an apartment in Japan, but if you don't have a visa that's longer than 1 year, you usually can't even open a bank account, which you need for a phone in an apartment. So a phone, maybe you get a SIM card. For a bank, maybe you just live off 7-Eleven banks and just kind of eat the bank fees. But for a place to live, a lot of real estate agents are not going to rent out short-term to a 6-month visa or less. 6 months is too high risk, especially when you have other candidates who we know are here for 1, 3, 5 years or longer. So your living situation is going to look like a share house where you can't pick the Wi-Fi, a Leo palace with broken plumbing, or maybe a hotel? Even Airbnb prices aren't even reasonable like they were back in the old Schmovid days. So what, you're living in a business hotel for some 6 months or so and hoping that their Wi-Fi is good enough and works with your work servers? That's pretty costly, especially if you're on the lower end of the salary requirement. Do you have to pay taxes? Is Japan trying to get taxes from people's foreign salaries? Is that what we're seeing here? Word from the street, word from my legal sources, and the buzz quietly over at immigration is that no, you actually don't have to pay taxes into Japan on a digital nomad visa because you're not going to get a residence card. This is not going to be a true blue residence card based visa that you can use the standard ID form that you use to register at your city local office, to get an address, to get a bank account, to get an apartment. That's not going to happen. If you are actually looking to live in Japan long term, if you're actually thinking of your track to come to Japan, the digital nomad visa is not going to be that. If you're thinking, I just need 6 months and that's it, or I'm just taking a sabbatical, or 50% tourism, 50% still get paid. If that's the case, sure, maybe a digital nomad visa and all the paperwork will make sense to you. Is the digital nomad visa actually livable? The hotels in Japan are not cheap. The Airbnb game is also not cheap. There are other options, for example, homestays, farm stays, so maybe there's a cheaper way to live, an alternative way to make things kind of cool. But in terms of the long-term haul game, it looks like, at least for now, that the digital nomad visa is not the golden ticket to kind of get you into Japan long-term. But what do you guys think? Let me know. I'm just enjoying kind of reading through the comments and reading through all the tea, but I'm more curious also to hear what you guys have to say in the comments as well. That's it for today's video. I just wanted to let you guys know about specifically the no residence card, no tax step, because that really kind of changes the image, the idea of what it looks like to actually live in Japan or not on this visa. では、今日もご視聴ありがとうございました。See you in the photo booths. Bye! Oh, いつも元気なルレッタでした。